there's actually nothing in the Constitution that guarantees our right to vote. And if you're surprised, I was really surprised. As a political science student and a political activist and someone who's registered thousands of students on campus, they were surprised too. The more I talked to people, the more I realized no one had any idea about the voting process. And most people had a lot of, kind of weird ideas about voting, and they wouldn't vote for certain reasons. And there were a lot of laws in place that would make it hard for them to vote. So I decided to sue the government. And I guess it worked because the law did change. And so one of the laws we seek to change was Rogers Law. So that's the law that your driver's license must exactly match your voter registration form. So say, for example, you have a hyphen in your name, and one underpaid, overworked DMV employee forgets to mention that hyphen when you register to vote, then your voter registration might just be thrown out. And you might not find this out until Election Day when you're at the polls and someone's turning you away. And another big barrier I found to voting was the first time in-person voter requirement. And if you're a college student, you've probably run into this one. So anyone under the age of 60 has to vote in person the first time they vote, which is really hard for a lot of students who turn 18 and then move away. So the U.S. population is 325.7 million. And out of those people, 245.5 million are registered to vote, or eligible to vote. And only 157.6 are registered to vote. And Michigan is one of the states with the lowest voting turnout rates. Is the state with the lowest voting turnout rates. And this could be because there's those laws in place, and there's a lot of myths going around. So as I was registering people, one thing that was told to me a lot was my vote doesn't even matter. And in fact, there's been a dozen races in the last 20 years that have been decided by a tie or won by a single vote. So one of my favorite examples is an Alaskan state house race was won by 4 votes out of 10,000. And then in 2016, a New Mexico state house race was won by 2 votes out of almost 14,000. And then even crazier, in Vermont, a state house race was won by 1 vote out of 2,000. And that was a rematch. And in the second time, when they faced each other, he won by 1 vote in the other direction. And then another one I would hear a lot. If I register to vote in my college town, I will lose my health insurance. And your health insurance isn't tied in any way to your voter registration. Another one students brought up a lot was I'm worried I'll lose my financial aid. And as long as you don't fail out of calculus, registering to vote, you will not lose your financial aid. If I can't make it to the polls on Election Day, I can't vote. So in Michigan, that was hard if you were a student. So to get around the first time in-person vote requirement before the law, which will be enacted in about a month, there was a big law change. You can request your absentee ballot in person. But now that the law changed, there's no reason absentee voting. So you can request an absentee voting for any reason at any time. So as a student, you don't need to vote in person anymore. So if I register to vote, I will have to serve jury duty. People hate jury duty, and they will not register to vote because they do not want to be called for it. So unfortunately, if you have a driver's license, you pay taxes, or you're an American citizen, you're just as likely to be called for jury duty than registering to vote. If I don't register to vote, I can't be drafted into the military. I don't know where you got this, but if you're 18 years or older and a male, then you have to register for selective service. I'm sorry. I can't register to vote because I don't have an ID for the state that I live in. So say you're moving to a new state. One way to kind of get around this is what I would do is use your last 4 digits of your social security number to register to vote. And kind of register early and register often. My right to vote is guaranteed by the Constitution. It's not guaranteed by the Constitution. And in fact, it wasn't mentioned until almost 100 years after ratification, with the First Amendment being the 14th Amendment, which would prohibit racial discrimination, but still didn't give people the right to vote. 42 years later, the 19th Amendment was introduced, which would give women the right to vote, but it still wasn't it didn't include everyone. So your right to vote isn't guaranteed. It's too late to register to vote. In Michigan, Ballot 3 just passed. I don't know if you heard about that, Proposal 3 on the ballot. So that made it so you had to register 30 days out before an election, but that's all changed. So now you can register up till Election Day. So that's pretty big news. So it's never too late to register to vote. And if you guys are interested, I can register now. Or if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to ask me. I've registered just about 21,000 people. So yeah, I'm a little bit of an expert. I really know how to fill out the form. So if you have any questions, feel free to vote and vote often. Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions.